Howdy ladies and gentlemen, my name is Lars Schall, and on behalf of Matterhorn Asset Management in Zurich, Switzerland, I have been in Vienna recently in order to meet up with asset manager Peter Boehringer, who's the initiator of the Bring Our Gold Back campaign in Germany. I am now here at the Castle Park of Schönbrunn in Vienna with the initiator of the German public campaign Bring Our Gold Back, Peter Boehringer. Mr. Boehringer, in order to kick off our interview, I would like to ask you first, what is the purpose and the importance of national gold reserves, and do you think that the importance will increase in years to come?
Well, I have a feeling that the listeners and viewers of Matterhorn Asset Management already know the purpose of gold, but maybe especially national gold. Gold has been money throughout history. Some sovereigns, some kings have used that property to put their faces on the coins, but that wasn't even necessary. Gold is natural money. Gold is money, nothing else, as J.P. Morgan put it. In addition, it is also the opponent of the bonds, the national bonds. The gold price has to be kept in bay somehow in order for national bonds to remain sellable. Just a few years ago, the former federal chairman Paul Volcker, he explicitly stated, "Gold is my enemy, I have an eye on it every day." He said it, and he meant it like that. That was after 1980, when it was he himself who made the mistake of his life by letting gold run. And well, this is the proof, the ultimate proof, that gold is natural money. And well, I believe, especially from a European perspective, once the currency crisis really will sweep away the euro, and it'll happen, but over time, even the dollar, the importance of national gold will even increase. Today it is potential money, potential sane money, and then it might even become real solid money again.
The successor of Paul Volcker as Federal Reserve Chairman was Alan Greenspan. And a few months ago at the Council on Foreign Relations in New York City, Mr. Greenspan said once again that gold is the ultimate form of money. However, in order that it can have this purpose of ultimate money, do you need the gold reserves at your own soil, at your own disposal at any time? Or, if this is not the case, is it truly a gold reserve?
Well, in our opinion, and this was basically our main motivation to initiate the campaign Repatriate Our Gold. Yes, gold only can fulfill its role as potential or real backing of a solid currency if it is on one's own soil, if it is audited properly, and there cannot be a doubt about that. We have to do that repatriation because otherwise you can never have a proper audit. There must not be a third-party risk related to the national gold. We have to really get rid of that. Gold with that third-party risk, nobody knows for sure whether it's there, where it is, whether it's double counted or lent out, cannot fulfill that role in our opinion.
Can you explain to our viewers, please, how the Germans acquired the gold that we are talking about?
We are only talking about post-1945 gold. It was acquired in the course of the Bretton Woods system. Germany very quickly in the 1950s and 60s became a pretty successful exporting nation. Therefore, we gained dollar from our exports, especially to the US. Those dollars, there was no use for them here in Germany. So technically, the exporters, the German companies exporting with export surpluses, gave their dollars to the Deutsche Bundesbank, and it in turn turned them over to the Federal Reserve. And this was the classical transition process of the Bretton Woods system. It was then exchanged into gold or gold demands. You could argue about that, at a rate of $35 per ounce, and that way Germany up until 1967 acquired up to 4,000 tons of gold. That's the way it came here.
Until today, a large amount of the gold is held abroad in New York City at the Federal Reserve Bank and at the Bank of England in London. And the German Bundesbank says it needs the gold there so that it is able, in order to react to an eventual currency crisis. Do you think this makes sense?
No, it is a bad joke, of course. 3 years ago, we ultimately brought Deutsche Bundesbank to repatriate part of our gold reserve. It's a very lengthy process. It's too slow. It's too little, but still, it's a success by our campaign. But still, to this very day, Deutsche Bundesbank keeps arguing 50% of our gold will have to remain abroad for good, for the reasons you just mentioned. And we just cannot swallow that reason. It's completely against all monetary theory. As I just explained, gold, in order to fulfill its role as the ultimate currency reserve, has to be on one's own soil, especially in the event of a national or even international currency crisis. It must not be abroad. It is then that nations need their ultimate reserve, and it is then when they want to get rid of their paper currencies. So Bundesbank is completely arguing the wrong way around.
Can you also talk a little bit about the storage situation of the gold that is held in Frankfurt? Is this dubious?
In our opinion, it is dubious too. I mean, the situation at the Fed and the Bank of England is no good, but it's not a lot better in Frankfurt either, because, only 2% of our gold can actually be videotaped or photographed. That's 77 tons that are probably there, probably not double counted and probably not lent out, which leaves us with some 98% where we have no real accounting for. 60% of that gold, 65% of that gold is abroad. Same story. We don't know exactly the whereabouts and the status of that gold. We're working on that. But of those 35%, approximately 1,100 tons, which should be in Frankfurt, they too cannot be videotaped, they cannot be photographed, and they are actually stored in metal boxes like this size. Many of them, steel boxes explicitly fabricated to store that gold. And they are closed. They have been closed for 15 years since they came over from London. That was a repatriation some 15 years ago from London. And they are sealed. Nobody has seen it. They are sealed hundreds of times. This is public record. We know that. But Bundesbank still says everything is in order with our gold. Well, I don't know how many people still live who have seen the initial storage of that gold in those boxes.
Yeah. You are calling for a proper auditing of the German gold reserves and the publication of the serial numbers of the gold bars. Why so?
Well, we believe it's the only way to at least try to find out whether there are double countings, or to avoid those double countings. If one central bank lends gold to the other one, they have a gold claim, and the other one has the physical gold. They both are allowed by the IMF regulations since 1998 to both count the same gold. Once as gold, physical gold bullion, and once as claim on gold. So you can double 10 tons to 20. You could double 100 times 100 tons, make 200 of them, and so on. And this is the only way to actually try and sort things out. And it's interesting, Deutsche Bundesbank claims, and they do that for 5 years. They initially claimed it towards us 5 years ago. Yes, we have those lists, those bar number lists for all storage locations. And we could, of course, publish them at a minute with the stroke of our hand. You could just release them publicly, but they don't. Just half a year ago, the Bundesbank executives, the managers, they told us, yeah, I think we could release those numbers, but they're still not there. They're somehow working on that, trying to plausibilize the lists. That's our feeling. And that's not good enough, but we need them.
Does the Deutsche Bundesbank try to answer your questions, or does it try to engage in something very different? And that would be the reversion of the burden of proof. You know?
That's more or less exactly what we're experiencing. They are custodians, and they have their sub-custodians, the Federal Reserve and the Bank of England. And as a custodian, this is not your gold, this is our gold. It's public assets, public gold. It should not be up to us to prove that something is not right here. It's up to them to prove that everything is in order. And they completely failed to do so and have been failing for decades now. And well, this is something we cannot accept any longer.
Yeah, and do we also experience something here that we experience quite often, where there is a lack of transparency, there come conspiracy theories into play?
They try that rhetoric all the time on us, but as I said, the burden of proof is on their side. It's completely easy for them, it were completely easy for them to dismiss our claims to the opposite and our questions. All we do is ask questions. And if everything were in order with the gold, they could have ended that story 5 years ago, no noise whatsoever, no 15 similar countries repatriating or discussing seriously the repatriation. So they could have avoided all that hassle and that by just giving out the information, but that's not coming. We don't get those answers, and that's the reason why the story keeps continuing.
I have also another book with me. This is the autobiography of Schall, who has been the president of the Deutsche Reichsbank, the predecessor of the Deutsche Bundesbank. And in this book, in chapter 34, he tells us about some encounters that he had with Benjamin Strong, the president of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. And Peter, you are familiar with one story that he had to tell about the German gold held at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. Can you tell us the story, please?
I can. Hjalmar Schacht became president in 1923 at the end of the hyperinflation of Germany. So he was used to gold. He should have known the merits and the importance of gold as backing of a currency. So yes, even the Weimar Republic, that was before the Nazis, in probably 1928, were owners of gold. It was stored already then in New York and not in Germany. Okay. And one day, Hjalmar Schacht was allowed to visit the Weimar gold at the Fed proper in the vaults of the Federal Reserve. And he was led there personally by his buddy. I think you really can say the name. All central banks are buddies. They are a very special club. They feel like that to this very day. And Benjamin Strong was a legend already at this day. He led Mr. Schacht in the gold vaults of the Federal Reserve and asked his staff to show Mr. Schacht the German Weimar gold. And it was not to be found. It wasn't there. And the reaction, and we have that from this very book which you've just shown, he's written that down in 1953 in his memoirs, more than 25 years later. Hjalmar Schacht's reaction was, okay, Mr. Strong, it's no problem at all that you cannot find our gold here in this cellar, in this vault. It's no problem at all. I trust you that everything is there. I believe that everything is there, and even if it were not there, you as a person, and the Fed of course, would be good for the replacement. So that's what he said, and this is the culture of do not want to know, which lives especially in the German central bank to this very day, even though that was 80 years ago. This is the culture that is still alive.
Thank you very much for this interview.
Thank you for having me.